Not long ago, I went through a very difficult period in my life that many of us may have experienced. At that time, everything seemed boring and monotonous to me. My health declined. The spark of enthusiasm had gone out. This had a terrible impact on my life and work. Every morning, I gritted my teeth and told myself, today, life continues to follow its own path. I have to overcome it. I definitely have to do that. But then the days of boredom dragged on, and the state of paralysis and no way out seemed to get worse and worse. It was time for me to know that I needed help. I went to see a doctor. He was older than me and looked gruff. However, I did not expect that behind the unsympathetic appearance was a very wise and experienced person. I told the doctor in pain that I seemed to be stuck. Can the doctor help me? I don't know. The doctor answered slowly, then leaned against his hand and stared at me for a long time. Suddenly he asked, "Where did you like best when you were a kid?" "When I was a kid," I asked back. Why did the doctor ask that? "I think it's the beach. My family has a beach house. We all like it." The doctor looked out the window, followed the falling leaves of autumn, and then asked, "Can you do what I say for a whole day?" "I think so," I answered eagerly. "Okay, I want you to do like this." According to the doctor's instructions, the next day, I had to drive to the beach alone and not be late for 9 a.m. I can eat lunch, but I can't read, write, listen to the radio, or talk to anyone. In addition, he said, "I will give you a prescription. Take it once every 3 hours." Then he took a sheet of white paper, tore it into 4 pieces, wrote a few words on each piece, folded them up and numbered them, and handed them to me. "Take these doses at 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 3 p.m., and 6 p.m. in order." "Are you serious, doctor?" I asked in surprise. The doctor laughed. "You won't think I'm joking when I take your medical fee." The next morning, with a small amount of faith in the doctor's prescription, I drove to the beach alone, as instructed. A northeast wind blew through, the sea looked grey, and the waves crashed like anger. I sat in the car with a long, empty day ahead of me. Then I opened the first piece of paper. On it was the line, "Listen carefully." I couldn't understand. The doctor must be crazy. He had forbidden me to listen to music, read the newspaper, and interact with other people, so what else was there to hear? However, I still decided to follow his words. I lifted my head and listened. There was no sound except for the regular crashing of the waves, the shrill cries of seagulls, and the distant hum of a few airplanes in the sky. Those were familiar sounds. I stepped out of the car. A strong gust of wind slammed the door shut. I wondered, did the doctor suggest that I should pay attention to these sounds? I climbed up a sand dune and looked out over the desolate beach. Sitting there, I could hear the roaring of the sea waves louder than anything else. And suddenly, I thought, there must be other sounds beneath those waves, the soft rustle of sand shifting, the whisper of the wind through the wild bushes growing on the dunes, if one listens attentively. Urged on, I jumped into the sea and submerged myself in the water. Suddenly, I found it amusing at my own action, and I bent my head into the seaweed. At that moment, I discovered that if you focus on listening, you can also hear those moments when everything stops, as if waiting. In that silent moment, all thoughts in your head come to a standstill, and your mind rests. I returned to the car and lay back in the driver's seat, continuing to listen attentively. When I heard the deep roar from the depths of the ocean again, I found myself thinking about the fury of the storms that rise within the very heart of the waves. Then I realized that I was thinking about things even larger than myself, and my heart was filled with those thoughts. In this way, the morning passed very slowly. The habit of immersing myself in a complicated problem had ingrained itself in me to the point where I felt lost without it. By noon, the sky was clear with not a cloud in sight. The sea sparkled brightly. I opened the second piece of paper. Once again, I felt a mix of joy and irritation. The second prescription read, "Try to retrieve memories." What memories, I wondered. Of course, it had to be the beautiful memories from the past. But why this, when all my worries were related to the present or the future? I left the car and started walking along the sand dunes. The doctor had helped me return to this beach, a place filled with countless happy childhood memories. This must be what he meant for me to rediscover. The overwhelming joy and happiness I had left behind. I decided to relive those faded moments. I would paint and vividly recreate the past's happiness. I would choose specific details to focus on. I would imagine how the people in those memories were dressed and how they laughed. The tide was receding, but the waves still crashed regularly. I chose to go back to the day of my last fishing trip with my younger brother 20 years ago. He had perished in World War II, but I realized that if I closed my eyes and truly tried, I could see an astonishingly lifelike image of my brother, even his playful and gleeful expression in his eyes. In fact, I saw the whole scene of that day: the shimmering sea, the dawn breaking in the eastern sky, the rolling waves majestically crashing onto the shore, and the warm backwash swirling around our knees. I could feel the sudden jolt of my brother's fishing rod as a fish took the bait and hear his joyful shout. I painted that picture, piece by piece, so vividly and unchanged by the passing years. Then those images passed. I stood up slowly, trying to revisit my past. Happy people are always confident and resolute. If you gently turn back and reach out to touch happiness, can't you find a bit of strength? The second part of the day passed quickly. As the sun began to cast long shadows, my mind excitedly journeyed into the past, reliving moments and rediscovering people I had completely forgotten. Over the years, I had remembered many events, but I had unintentionally let the happiness of the past be carried away by the river of time. A warm feeling welled up inside me, and at that moment I understood that no good-hearted gesture is ever wasted or can lose its meaning. By 3 in the afternoon, the water had receded, and the sound of the waves now was just a whisper in rhythm. The sea seemed like a giant taking deep breaths. The sand dunes now felt like my sanctuary. I felt relaxed, content, and somewhat self-satisfied. The doctor's prescriptions were surprisingly easy to take. However, I wasn't ready for the third one. This request wasn't gentle at all. It sounded more like a command. Re-examine your motives. My initial reaction when reading those words was to defend myself. There was nothing wrong with my motives, I told myself. I wanted to succeed. Who doesn't? I wanted to be recognized, but so do others. I wanted to be loved, to be safe. Why not? Perhaps a small voice echoed somewhere in my mind. Those motives weren't entirely pure. Maybe that's why I felt stuck. I bent down, scooping a handful of sand, and let it fall through my fingers. In the past, the things I did well always happened naturally, without premeditation. Lately, there was calculation, meticulous preparation, and things still didn't go smoothly. Why? Because I had started looking beyond the work itself, thinking only about the rewards I hoped it would bring. And the work had become just a means to earn money. The feeling of giving, of helping others, of dedicating oneself had gotten lost in the hustle to secure one's own interests. In an instant, I realized a certain truth. If a person's motives lack purity, everything else is in vain. Whether you are a mail carrier, a hairdresser, an insurance salesman, a stay-at-home dad, or a homemaker, it makes no difference. Only when you feel you are serving others do you truly excel at your work. If you're only focused on what you will gain, the effectiveness of your work diminishes. It's a natural law of life. I sat for a while. In the distance, the sound of waves had shifted from the whispers of a receding tide to the roar of an incoming one. Behind me, the last rays of the day were almost vanishing below the horizon. My day at the beach was nearing its end, and I admired and envied the doctor and his unconventional yet profoundly simple prescriptions. Listening attentively to calm and soothe a restless mind, shifting the focus from inside to outside, trying to retrieve the past, to erase current worries when seeking happiness from the past. Re-examining my motives, this was the key to the treatment. Evaluating, placing one's motives on an equal footing with abilities and conscience, and doing it sincerely. The western sky had turned a brilliant red as I took out the final piece of paper. After reading the words written on it, I walked slowly to the beach. When I was just a few meters from the water's edge, I stopped and read the words again. Write your worries in the sand. I released the paper, let it fly, and then bent down to pick up a broken seashell. Under the high vault of the sky, I wrote a lot on the sand, one worry after another. Then, I turned and walked away without looking back. I had written my worries in the sand, and out there, the waves were washing them away. Thank you so much for watching and stay blessed.